Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam, and beyond today, I'm joined by Connor.
Hey, guys.
And Mike.
Hello.
We're hot off the unofficial leaked specs of the PlayStation 5 Pro. Devs have dev kits in hand, so leaks are inevitable at this point. Sony's actually looking for the leaker. They're not too happy about this leak, but the specs of the PlayStation 5 Pro have leaked with an extremely likely release date of late this year. I don't want to say anything's confirmed because after the Nintendo Switch 2 debacle, I can't really say anything anymore about release dates. But yeah, this thing exists. But I guess the question is, does it need to exist?
No.
There's certainly going to be some kind of audience for it, but I don't know. I think we can talk about the PS5 Pro specs and then kind of dovetail that into a discussion about Pro consoles in general. But have either of you guys seen the specs yet?
I saw that it existed, but it is very difficult to care about a PS5 Pro spec right now. Like, when it still a PS5 to me still feels like a PS4 Pro. So,
yeah, the PlayStation 5 has this unique problem, and it's not just PS5, right? It's this console generation in general, which seems to be very attached to the previous gen, more so than we have been for console generations in the past. But the PS5 Pro is real. We're getting it whether we like it or not. So I think just to look at the specs for a minute, right? So 45% faster rendering than the PS5.
Is that for raster? Like normal raster, not ray tracing?
Yeah, rasterization,
okay.
Not ray tracing. The actual lift comes into ray tracing, 2 to 3 times ray tracing, 4 times in some case performance for ray tracing. We can talk about why that is in a minute. 33.5 teraflops. Support for resolutions up to 8K, and we'll talk about that as well.
Nothing.
And here are the interesting bits that I really want to get into. Custom machine learning architecture. PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution Upscaling. That's what they're calling their upscaler,
That's
their
interesting.
DLSS.
Okay. Well, it's
PSSR.
Well, I guess it might be AI-based, since they're doing machine learning.
Yeah, it's an upscaling anti-aliasing solution.
Yeah.
And their AI accelerator supports up to 300 TOPS of 8-bit computation. I don't really know what that means. Maybe you know what that means, Connor. But
say it again.
300 TOPS, TOPS, of 8-bit computation.
I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, so we're not machine learning engineers over here, but we do know enough to that. I am excited about PSSR because I was reading about this. So it seems to be somewhere between FSR and DLSS in terms of efficacy.
Yeah.
So what we're getting, Sony's solution is going to be an improvement over FSR.
Which FSR?
Highly doubtful. FSR 2.
Okay.
And FSR 3, I believe, just adds frame gen. It doesn't actually improve.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. I was reading about this.
It isn't just frame gen, I don't think, because there are some games I've played that have an FSR 2 and an FSR 3 scale option that are separate from frame gen. It's
apparently, I was reading a little bit about this, and people who are way smarter than me seem to think that because of the way their pipeline is set up for upscaling, they can apply PSSR and FSR 3 frame gen to an image.
Oh,
which I think is pretty exciting.
That's compelling.
So I think PS5 Pro, the rasterization updates, the 8K, whatever, that's all kind of nonsense fluff. But the real meat of this, I think, is in their PSSR.
It'd be really nice
AI upscaling.
If PSSR is like driver level in the same way FSR can be, and if you can just kind of have it for free, like...
Yeah, that would be the ideal scenario, right? Where like minimal input from devs, it just makes everything better.
Well, that's my thought with the focus on ray tracing too, where like they can just add ray tracing, you know, like a lot of games have ray tracing that isn't particularly compelling, and that's fine, I guess. But that, you know, now like you can get that on PlayStation, you know? Yeah,
and there have been a couple like leaked examples from Sony's internal documents where they're saying, "Oh, we had a game that previously the performance mode ran at like 1800p 30 FPS, or sorry, the resolution mode, fidelity mode ran at 1800p 30 FPS. Performance mode ran at 1080p 60 FPS. But with PSSR implemented, the base resolution was 1440p, right? Like, so it was the base resolution before upscaling to 4K, 60 FPS with the full ray tracing suite provided in the fidelity mode. So, in effect, what I think this means for a lot of games is that, like, and for those of you who don't know, right, like consoles nowadays usually each console game comes with two, like, modes, a fidelity mode and a performance mode, where a fidelity mode prioritizes, like, ray tracing and resolution, and performance mode prioritizes frame rate. This kind of makes it sound like that PSSR is going to bridge that gap, where you're going to get an upscaled resolution, you're going to get the 60 FPS, and you're going to get the ray tracing in a lot of cases, which is exciting to me as a fan of, PlayStation games.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. I think it'd be more exciting if we hadn't very recently come to the conclusion all these games are going to come to PC anyway.
Yeah. Right, yeah. And all these games are going to come to PC, but
this is going to be an expensive...
There are a lot of people who
yeah.
own a PlayStation that don't have a PC.
That's
right?
true.
So for them to get these features is a pretty
But are
big
those
deal.
people going to buy a PS5 Pro? I wonder what the...
So that's the question,
because the PS5
right?
Pro is a super consumer device in the same way that a PC is. So...
But here's the thing, like, from my perspective, it almost seems like this is what the PS5 was supposed to be, right? Like, the PS5 is just a souped-up PS4 Pro, in essence, right? Like, the only real next-gen feature was the SSD.
I was going to say, you wouldn't have said that a few years ago.
Right, I wouldn't have, right? But the only real next-gen feature, right,
it's the SSD,
after having owned it, is the SSD. That is a true, like...
And the controller.
The controller as well. But, like, we're talking about, like, strict hardware in the box, right? Like, that SSD is a game changer. And that changes the way you play or you interact with games. But that's about it, right? Like, games largely look the same as they do on PlayStation 4 Pro, to my perspective.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Horizon Forbidden West looks a lot less shiny on a PlayStation 4 Pro, but the overall image, the overall stuff happening graphically is the same.
Yeah.
This, to me, is a real, like, next-gen sort of update, using the AI ML upscaling technologies that have become so popular, like that AMD and NVIDIA popularized, right? Like, the search or hunt or whatever for 4K resolution is dead, right? And rightfully so, because NVIDIA and AMD have such good upscaling solutions, right? Like,
yeah.
Your base image can be 720, 1080, what have you, and that's good enough, right? Like, so I think for developers, this is going to be very exciting, right? Like, they won't have to devote so much computation.
I do wonder if you're going to...
computational resources to resolution anymore.
Will this be able to get, like, 4K 120 out of a 4K 60 game using FSR3, though? I wonder how common that'll be, because that'll be
so
huge,
actually... That leads into another thing I wanted to discuss, right? PSSR, which is kind of a weird acronym, but whatever, that's what they're calling it. But they said in their documents that, like, there are cases where some games hit 4K 120, but their overall goals with this, right? Like, they said PSSR is more a technology that they're getting ready for the PlayStation 6.
That makes sense.
That this is, like, kind of like a... we're getting the early version of it in PS5 Pro. And I think that's really smart, because I do think next gen will be all about the AI ML upscaling. That will be the huge next gen feature, using AI ML for resolution upscaling as well as ray tracing. So that's exciting in the sense that, like, we're getting a pretty good version of it now, and the fact that this is going to be in consoles for the next several years, developers will get used to working with it, presuming, it's not just like a turn it on.
Well, they largely already have. I mean, most of the major PlayStation developers have shipped a game on PC, and PlayStation has, they've been very good about including FSR, DLSS, and the Intel one that I can't ever remember the name of. XeSS, which apparently is outperforming FSR2 in some cases.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I need to actually look into that. But I think I think the expertise is already there largely. I mean, maybe PSSR will have quirks to it as they do often, but
right.
Yeah,
But I think
I don't know.
No, go ahead.
No, I wonder. I don't think the learning curve on these is super steep. I don't think so.
I think you're right, and I think I additionally, right, like Sony famously for the PlayStation 5, they went around to developers and were like, "What is the number one thing you want in this console?" And they all said the SSD, so we got a really good SSD.
Yeah.
I assume something similar is happening for the PlayStation 6, where they're like, "What is the one thing you really want?" And they're saying
they wanted like, DLSS, probably
image upscaling,
yeah, because
right?
they already
like
had
upscaling.
FSR. Like FSR 2 worked on the PlayStation. I'm pretty sure it's open source.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of games I think just use it without advertising.
Yeah,
right? Like
I think
on
so.
PC,
yeah.
you can like go in and select it or turn it on and off. On console, you don't really have a choice.
Yeah,
but I think PSSR is a lot more exciting of a prospect to me than FSR 2, especially if it can work in tandem with FrameGen tech like FSR 3. Then we can start seeing some real crazy stuff on console that I didn't really think we'd see.
Yeah. I guess the other question is the base PS5 going to get FSR 3 though? Because there's nothing. I don't see why it wouldn't. On games that run at 60 at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess this is where my lack of expertise comes in. Like, I don't know if there's some sort of...
I don't either. I don't know. I know you want a game to be running at 60 if you're going to run frame gen.
Right.
You want your game to already be at 60. It's really not a good get you to 60 technology. It's a good, like, you're at 60, let's
in
double
contrast with DLSS, though, right? Like, DLSS is actually good at those lower frame rates for frame gen.
No, it's not. It has the same massive disadvantage as FSR 3 has.
I heard that for FSR 3, you need to be at 60, and for DLSS, it's kind of nice to be at 60, but you can be lower.
To my eye, they're pretty much the same. It's just an input delay problem. When you introduce something, frame generation increases input delay, and if you're already under 60, introducing additional input delay is not a great idea.
So I wanted to kind of circle back on the idea of 8K, right? Like, it seems like we're getting this forced down our throats by major console manufacturers.
Yeah, it just...
I don't really know why, though. Like,
it has
surely
zero
Sony
value.
sees that no one has an 8K TV. There's no 8K content. And like, why chase this?
There's also just no demand. Like, Apple... I hate Apple, right? I'm not a fan of them. But they introduced the idea of a Retina display. And I think it's the smartest thing anyone has ever done. Like, and my 55-inch 4K TV, I'm pretty sure it meets the spec of a Retina display. Like, from where I am sitting, cannot see a pixel on that TV, and I have I think 2020. I haven't had my vision tested in a long time, but I have pretty good vision. And when I'm looking at my 4K TV from my couch, I can't see a pixel. Like, I have to get up and get close to it. I don't see any value. You know, my 1440p ultra-wide monitor is not a Retina display, so maybe 8K on a PC monitor makes sense. And I know some people play their PlayStations on a monitor.
I'm gonna say, like, I'm still on 1080p, and I don't even recognize pixels at this point. Like, I just can't tell.
Yeah, I mean, resolution is definitely... it's just diminishing returns.
Yeah,
like,
I see zero value in 8K outside of VR. Like...
Yeah.
But it does seem like we're getting it. So, like, for PSSR, I was getting to this earlier, and I guess I got sidetracked, right? Like I said, this is primarily a technology that's going to be used in PlayStation 6. But their targets for PlayStation 5 Pro is that using PSSR, they want games to largely be able to hit either 4K 60 or 8K 30. Those are their targets. And for PlayStation 6, when this tech matures, they are targeting 4K 120, 8K 60.
I guess my question is, Ahmed, like right now, if you could buy an 8K TV for $100 more than you paid for the TV you have, would you do it?
I don't know.
No, me neither.
Why would I?
Like, who cares?
Like, there's no point. There's no content.
Like, I'm a super consumer, I would say, using the terms that we used earlier, or I used earlier. But like, I spent a lot of money on my TV. I really like my setup. I spent a lot on my monitor, my computer, and everything. but I'm not going to buy something that I literally can't tell the difference. Like, 8K has no value to me at all.
Yeah, I almost wonder if, like, these big companies are just banking on the sort of buzzword value that the word 8K has.
I think that's finally, because like that worked for 4K and that worked for 1080p, but that was in a pre-TikTok world where like now, I mean, and this might be in a post-TikTok world. I won't even get into that, but like we're in a world where like consumers are seeing stuff that they didn't used to see, like like a 30-second review where somebody tells you that like, oh, this is actually pointless, don't buy it. Like if that would have put Sega out of business in the 90s. Like, right. If people could see something like that, but it just wasn't available to people. And I think it's going to be a hard sell to get people to buy into something that is literally non-existent.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, don't get me wrong, like them saying they want PSSR to make 4K 120 the standard for PlayStation 6.
That's great.
I'm all about that. That's
4K
fantastic.
120 is I not something I can hit in every game, but like when I can hit it, and I can with frame gen, I can hit it in pretty much anything.
What I fear is that I don't want Sony, or any company for that matter, to go down a route where they're making sacrifices in their game to reach an 8K resolution.
No, that's such a waste.
Is absurd.
Because genuinely no one would be seeing it.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't come to pass. I hope that I think 4K is the ceiling, right? Like we've kind of reached it. And technically we haven't even reached it, right? Like
a lot of games aren't hitting 4K.
The only 4K images we have largely for video games are reconstructed images. Like almost no one is running a native 4K image when they're playing a game.
So that's not really true. I mean, a lot of PC.
I mean, everyone's using FSR DLSS nowadays.
Not to hit 60.
You mean to go beyond that?
To get above 60, yeah, you're gonna probably use an upscaling technology. But if you're just playing it, I know plenty of people that don't like the upscalers. They don't like the way they look. They're uncomfortable with the compromises.
No, that's fair. I will say though, as someone who has used DLSS, especially DLSS quality mode, that stuff looks as good, if not better, than native resolution. It's insane.
Yeah.
How good that stuff looks.
I agree that I don't see a difference, but I know people, and they buy AMD cards because they don't care about the upscaling typically, and they play their games in native 4K at whatever resolution that happens, or at whatever frame rate they happen to get out of that.
Right.
And it's usually pretty good if you're buying a high-end card. Like the top of the line graphics cards, not in the newest games, but in games from a year or two ago. Like I could probably get 4K 60 out of Halo Infinite pretty easily on my rig.
Yeah.
I that's a keyboard and mouse game for me,
But I guess the point being, right, like, I don't really see the point, and granted, this point is far in the future, so maybe things will change, but, like, would you really want to take, like, a 1080p image or a 720p image and upscale it all the way to 8K? Like, why?
Counterpoint, like, if you're already upscaling it to 4K, and the technology exists to upscale it to 8K, like, why wouldn't you? The only thing is, you can't get 8K 120. HDMI 2.1 can't do that. So
right, we'd have to get a new new spec.
Yeah, you'd have to compromise on frame rate, and I would never ever compromise on frame rate to get 8K on a TV. That just doesn't make any sense. It's such a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they can sell it to us, like you said, Connor, if there's like literally, you know, if it's just
at no cost,
we're just going to, if it's at no cost, but these things often come at a cost. So,
well, even then, I don't like, you're not going to sell me on an 8K TV. Like,
yeah, there's nothing that can sell me on 8K. Like, I'm still skeptical about upgrading to 4K at this point.
No, yeah,
I mean, performance.
My next
and
TV,
I like cost for performance, especially for PC.
No, and you
right
can
now,
if you're comfortable
for performance, 1080p.
If you're comfortable at 1080p, you can, you're comfortable in the 20 or 30 series graphics cards, and you're going to be fine for a long time, probably, especially with these upscaling technologies.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to need to upgrade my graphics card for probably, I don't know, another 5-6 years.
And I don't see myself upgrading, because I just got this OLED like maybe a year ago, something like that. I don't see an upgrade for me buying a new TV in the next
decade.
Yeah. Like unless I get notable burn-in or something, or God forbid something happens while I'm moving and the TV gets damaged or something. I just don't see it.
Right.
I love it so much. I just don't see a reason to upgrade. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Like, we've reached such high highs in terms of display technologies. Like those 4K OLED TVs are just a sight to behold.
Right now is purely in the range of like the super enthusiast. Like I buy the latest graphic cards as soon as they come out, level enthusiast.
Yeah, like these are people making $500,000 a year. Like,
which is like, you know, this is a niche of a niche, right? Like we're already in the niche of like enthusiast.
Yeah.
But like even we are saying that there's no way we're gonna shell out for an 8K TV.
No, and I'm someone who like I'm one experience away from shelling out like thousands of dollars on headphones. Like I'm somebody who would do stuff like that, and an 8K TV just sounds stupid to me.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement there. I kind of wonder why Sony is going down this route, but who knows? Maybe PSSR is so freaking good that like they really can upscale to 8K without any sort of overhead or any sort of downside. So
yeah, and there's always like there is the other side of this, which is like there is value in upscaling to 8K and then scaling back down to 4K and showing that on a screen. That is going to be a cleaner image than just upscaling to 4K would have been. It's
like super sampling.
So that's, thank you. I couldn't think of the term. It's going to be so negligible, like, but it is there.
Yeah, unless like at this point I don't see any perceivable increase in visual quality past what we already have in at least a decade and a half.
No, I kind of wish they would focus on something other than visuals. Like
even like frame rate wise, I think we're reaching the point where like you're getting diminishing returns on frame rates. As much as people will parade around like 280 to whatever the 200 frame rate is right now.
No, I mean, this is why I love the upscaling technology so much, because I think we will see an increase in visual, I guess, density.
Yeah.
Not necessarily visual fidelity, but like if developers, if upscaling becomes the norm, right? We're like, okay, we're only going to render at 1080p. We're going to upscale very cleanly to 4K. It's going to look almost identical to 4K. We can spend all of those computational resources on increasing image density and making the image actually look next-gen rather than pouring stuff into resolution. I think that's going to start happening more and more as these technologies become standard everywhere, not just on PC.
I also wonder... We're staring down the barrel of a crisis of affordability in game development for 4K games. And you're going to sit here and say, yeah, next gen, we're going to do 8K.
We are in crisis mode for budgets. And console manufacturers are, what if we increase the visual fidelity and not optimize our current visual fidelity?
Yeah.
Because 1080p had a decade and a half of relative optimization.
Yeah, I just don't know if
you
couldn't sell me on. I mean, I think outside of Nintendo still got me because the Nintendo Switch is not keeping up.
It took until the PS4 for 1080p to be a relevant resolution.
Yeah,
and it sat there for 7 years of optimization, and now next gen we're talking like 8K.
No, but here's what I'm saying though. Like, I think 8K is a pie in the sky dream, but I do think we'll get to see some of that optimization you were talking about, Mike, for 4K now, because let's look at consoles, right? Because PC has already had this, but Nintendo Switch 2 is going to support DLSS.
Yeah.
Sony's next console is going to support PSSR, and you better believe Microsoft's next console is going to have some sort of MLI AI upscaling technology.
It is going to be the most powerful console, and the most significant leap in console history.
Right, yeah. So if all three major console manufacturers and PC are all supporting this tech, right, like where does that leave us? That leaves us in a place where devs can really focus more on improving image density rather than image fidelity. And I really think that's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, I think...
Because I think your games are going to look a lot better once that becomes the norm.
The value in things like this are like, to me, it's render distance in games like... Or LOD detail. Like, games like, Minecraft comes to mind. Like, render distance matters so much in how good Minecraft can look. But this is true of any game with big worlds.
Plus, I think like devs' obsession with visual fidelity is kind of contrary to what most consumers like. When you think of like the last couple of games of the year, it's been games that aren't exactly like on the cutting edge of graphical design. Like what was last year's game of the year?
Baldur's Gate 3.
Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, it's not exactly a cutting edge game.
No, it's
Like,
an
that's
art.
the thing. Like, I don't think,
But
I think we're way past the era where graphics really play a serious
yeah,
role in like a game of the year kind of discussion. Like maybe that was the case.
like
a decade
graphics
or
don't
so
make
ago,
a good game
but-
anymore. Some of the best games on PC are pixel art. Like,
Yeah. No,
and there's
it's
no
all about
world
style.
where you can convince there's people who are like, oh man, I think pixel art's the most beautiful thing in the world. You can't convince me that there's people that actually think that. Like, I love pixel art, but you can't convince me that there's people that think pixel art is the end of all developmental art styles.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, you have like hardcore purists everywhere, but
yeah.
yeah, the other thing I wanted to highlight with the PS5 Pro that might put a damper on some of the exciting things we're talking about. Their CPU is the same as the PS5, which is to be expected, right?
It's running
They
at a
want all
higher
the
clock
games to
speed,
be
though, right?
higher clock speed, but the same CPU, right? Like,
We've
but how
gone
much
away-
can a higher clock speed really improve things, right?
A
Like,
good bit.
Yeah,
actually.
I would say a good
If
bit.
if it's the
Okay.
same CPU, the same instruction set and dev, right? So,
Yeah.
right.
like, it's just a faster clock speed is just better. Same amount of cores and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would actually
gonna
be
get a
more
little better.
dubious of a new CPU with a higher clock
Yeah.
speed, because then it would be different, and like the clock speeds of two totally different CPUs are less comparable.
Yeah. They can just feed it more instructions than they could previously.
I guess it comes to the question of like, are games on the PS5 CPU bound or GPU bound? And I guess I don't really
it's
know
always
the answer to
GPU.
that.
It's always going to be GPU.
You think
in
It's
this age.
usually GPU. Yeah,
It's always GPU.
So then, yeah, then maybe my concern is mitigated, right? Like this should be a pretty big uplift.
We are in the
for-
age of
for games
gaming
on-
where development wise it's always GPU bound. CPU hits don't happen unless your game's not optimized.
or
I guess
if it's
I'm
Factorio.
only
Yeah.
right. Like I guess I'm speaking from the perspective of like I ran into my first like CPU bottleneck when I was trying to play Starfield,
Yeah, well,
where I had the graphics card, but my CPU was just not enough to hit 60 FPS. And I
That's
had to
because
upgrade my
Bethesda's
CPU.
engine is ancient, but
yeah, no, it's
They
not. It's
don't-
because Bethesda doesn't know how to. Unreal Engine 5
Yeah.
is just as ancient, but it's because Bethesda doesn't know how to make a game anymore.
that's true. They don't know how to like right at the current point in modern era, you can offset so much to a GPU because it just does it better than the CPU could.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying this. I don't know how to work on a AAA game. I don't know what that looks like, so I don't want to dunk on the devs at Bethesda. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying. But
I don't want to dunk on them either.
There
I
was
just think,
no-
like,
there's just no excuse for a game with the backing of Microsoft and Bethesda to run the way Starfield did. It was insane.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know. Okay, so with that out of the way, that was my big kind of worry point for the PS5 Pro, but it sounds like it's maybe not something to be too worried about with games being mostly GPU constrained. So we're getting a better GPU, we're getting machine learning capability, we're getting upscaling technology, home baked, by the way, right? PSSR is some internal thing that Sony developed, so that's always exciting to see their internally developed stuff, because I feel like they're pretty good, right? Like their SSD was really good too. So I'm excited for this thing. I don't know how well it will sell. Probably not too well, right? Like I don't
mean,
imagine
it's
there's
gonna-
a big market for this
It's
thing.
got to cost $700 or $800, right?
Yeah, that's the other big thing, right?
A PlayStation
Price.
5 is $500 right now for one with a disc drive.
yeah.
So we're halfway through the PS5 console generation. It's gotta, like, the price has gotta come down, right? Like, I could see maybe, like, the price of PS5 dropping to $400 and then this thing being between $500 and $600.
I could see that, but
I just think if you go over 600, you're sending this thing out to, like, really die. Like, I don't think anyone...
I think if you lower the price of a normal PS5, then people are just going to buy that. Like,
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. No, like, historically, and I guess we could talk about pro consoles in general, like, pro consoles...
they don't
not,
do
like,
well. Yeah.
They're not the primary sales driver, let's say. Like, there are way more PS5 sold than PS4 sold than PS4 Pros. Way more Xbox, like One S, Xbox One sold than One X's. So, I don't know. Like, clearly there is a niche audience.
Are, I think, an enthusiast release to give that enthusiast that wants the newest console something else to spend money on.
We did a bunch of episodes on the I believe we were calling it the PS4K at the time, right?
Did we call it that?
I think we did, because we thought it was going to do 4K, the PS4 Pro.
So the PS4 Pro, it did do 4K, but remember, that was the era of checkerboard rendering.
Right, I remember that.
So there were a lot of 1800p resolutions upscaled to 4K, that sort of thing.
And this was like before DLSS and FSR had really caught on.
Yeah, this was before all of that. Checkerboard was like kind of the first stab at something.
Yeah, and because I remember thinking like, man, why do I not have checkerboard on PC? And then, and then obviously we got FSR and DLSS, and I didn't care anymore. But I remember a lot of excitement around the PS4 Pro, I think, or at least I feel like you were excited, Ahmed, in a way that I don't know that exists for the PS5 Pro.
Yeah, well, I think the PS4 Pro was kind of unique because it was like the first time something like this was really happening, right? Unless I'm forgetting something.
New Nintendo 3DS.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
I mean, Nintendo has been releasing mid-gen refreshes of their handhelds for years.
Nintendo has been
right,
doing
but like
it,
this.
But that's handheld.
This was a more substantial, like PS4 Pro was more substantial mid-gen, like in terms of like power than like something like a new 3DS.
I think
the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Color,
or the Game Boy Advance SP, which was like
the Game Boy Advance SP didn't have any performance increase,
but it was a massive step up in design, ergonomics, and everything on the Game Boy Advance.
But the Game Boy Color, which Nintendo considers a mid-generation refresh.
Massive.
That's crazy.
That is like
it like doubled the performance. Yeah. It was a huge step up.
Like, that's huge.
So we're never gonna top that one. But
okay, right. But
like
we're talking about the modern.
We're talking about home consoles in the 2020s. Yeah.
Yeah. The PlayStation 5 Pro isn't gonna do something as exciting as adding more color.
Or yeah.
Right. But that's what I'm getting at, right? Like, you guys know what I mean.
But
like, the PS4 Pro was kind of like a novel thing for the time. But now, right, like, people are just getting around to getting PS5s. I do think, even though mathematically we are in the middle of a console generation, it doesn't feel like that to anyone. Like, everyone feels like we're still sort of...
in the beginning,
getting their feet wet with this console generation.
Well, what's going to be crazy is that they're now adding... They already have... So, a PlayStation exclusive right now has to run on the PS4, the PS4 Pro, and the PS5, and they're going to add a fourth hardware target to that.
What I will say is I do think we're finally out of the cross-gen period, right? Like, after the release of Spider-Man 2, I don't think we're going to see games cross-gen.
Helldivers 2
anymore.
Just came out on...
Helldivers 2 did just come out. Yeah, I forgot that it had a PS4 version.
Did it?
But,
I didn't even know it
Rise...
did.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's playing it on PS4. But
Rise
of the Ronin is coming out on only PS5, right? Like, the future exclusives are only going to come out on PS5, right? Like, I was going to list some, but I don't know any because Sony hasn't announced
Rise
anything,
of the Ronin, maybe?
No, I mentioned that. That's a PS5 console exclusive. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth did not come out on PlayStation 4.
Okay.
That was PlayStation 5 only. So we are kind of finally escaping that cross-gen malaise period, thankfully. But
it took long enough.
So to answer your question,
long cross-gen.
It was a long. This was the longest I can remember. But hopefully they'll only have 3 targets, right? Like PS5, PS5 Pro, and PC.
I honestly think like this gen, in retrospective, made like a step back because of mid-gen console, or not mid-gen console, but Microsoft releasing a
Series S
inferior version of their console is causing devs so much heartache right now.
Yeah, it was a big problem for Baldur's Gate, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's kind of like you can look at it 2 ways, because the Baldur's Gate devs actually thanked the Series S because they found ways to optimize their game because they had that constraint.
Yeah.
Like, where otherwise they wouldn't have like even looked to do that. So,
and that's also a problem nowadays, is that like, as a dev, there's less and less reason to optimize, because optimization is painful and takes a lot of time that could be better spent doing other things.
Yeah.
So there's really no impetus to optimize games to the degree that they used to.
And that
because,
can be a
again,
beautiful
it's
thing.
time consuming.
Yeah, we can get more game out of less dev time, which is nice.
But at the same time, a lot of optimization is necessary, and we're losing that art of squeezing as much as possible out of a system.
Yeah.
And it's really showing in terms of like QA quality.
I also wonder how big is the PS5 Pro going to be? The PS5 is like this.
It's going to look like a monstrosity.
Like I was just looking at
It's gonna be like 3 feet tall.
I bought
There's a PS5 right behind me right now. Surprisingly.
So I will say, I don't know if this is indicative of anything, but the dev kits apparently for the PS5 Pro are identical to the PS5.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of
so hideous and huge.
PS5 in my room now, but
like I was looking at my entertainment system this week that I just gotten built, and I'm very happy with it. But I was just like, man, I can't buy a PS5. Like, there's nowhere to put it. Like,
yeah, not mine. My girlfriend's. She's staying over while I'm at PAX to watch the cats and everything. Her PS5 is currently like wedged behind a TV on my dresser.
Yeah, like they're just not. They're not very aesthetic consoles.
They are too big.
They're too big.
I will say they are too big. I had to specifically buy my TV stand to fit my PS5.
Yeah,
like I had to look for one that was specifically have dimensions.
My PC case, like that's nuts.
I shared a yeah, I guess I can't talk as a PC gamer, but I shared a YouTube video on our Discord. Join our Game Talk Discord, by the way. But I shared a video to it of a guy who took the PS5 Slim apart, and like when you
it's doable.
When you look at the internals, it is very difficult to justify its design. Like, why does it look like that? Why is it so big?
And you know what? I could talk about PC for a little bit, because PC, at least, you can make aesthetically pleasing.
Well, PC, you also, like, you can make them small. It's just easier. If you're building your own, it's easier to build big. Yet there's more space to work. Like, but when you're manufacturing something, you can make it much smaller than you can when you're like a dude building something.
And the PC can fit just about any aesthetic if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true too. But so can the PS5. You can like if we're gonna get into the weeds, I can customize a PS5 to fit my living room. But
right, you can change out the plates and stuff.
It does look like Kaiba, so like.
Well, I mean, you could even just take it out of the case and put it in a new case. Like modern consoles, you can just do that. It's possible.
I didn't know that.
It's not easy, but you know,
it's not.
It's
easy.
just
the
a computer.
Consumer can't do it.
No, well, the average consumer can't do it on a PC either.
That's true.
It's a very similar skill set, I would argue. It's just it's a step further to do it to a console. But it's just a motherboard, a cooler, a CPU, like, or APU, I guess, I think, on a PS5. And a power supply.
I don't know if they have discrete graphics on a PS5. They might.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Wouldn't surprise me if they had discrete graphics.
But anyway,
but yeah,
it's
so pro consoles. I did want to also highlight the fact that I think these consoles only exist because human beings have been conditioned to do things like buy a new iPhone every year.
Yeah, like, that doesn't help. Yeah,
there is like a social pressure to always upgrade your tech.
No,
at the earliest opportunity.
It's a gross urge. Like my phone is paid off soon, and I've like had a minor urge to get a new one. And like,
I think I'm about to buy a new phone, but my phone is 4 years old now, so it's
my phone's not. My phone's 2 years
long
old
in the teeth. Yeah,
and it's
mine's
fine.
Getting a little long in the teeth.
Think about how crazy that is, though. Like these phones are like $800 to $1,000 plus.
Yeah.
And obviously you get pretty good trade-in deals, right? But you're still paying like what, $400 to $500 a year for a phone. That is a console.
Yeah.
In terms of price.
It's just you don't.
So I guess Sony and Microsoft
kind of don't pay attention to it because of
it's rolled up in a phone bill. And,
But that's what I'm saying, right? Like Sony and Microsoft saw this behavior more than likely, and they were like, "Why can't we do that with consoles too?" Like obviously we're not getting new consoles every year with incremental upgrades, but like there certainly has been a precedent set by things like cell phones, I think, to where companies can feel more comfortable doing this. And I firmly believe, like, I guess we'll never know for sure, but I firmly believe Nintendo did plan a Switch Pro that they then canned. There was just way too much smoke around that.
Too much where there's smoke, they must be fire. The Switch 2 is coming in 2024.
It was coming in 2024. They just delayed it.
Mm-hmm. A likely story.
Oh gosh. But
I do want to say
no. I do think yes. Nintendo. I wouldn't be surprised if they also got in on this game like halfway through the Switch 2's life cycle.
So I know it doesn't fit. Well, Nintendo's way ahead of you on this. Like the 3DS, the new 3DS had exclusives that did not run on the 3DS.
See, that's not okay. Like that's.
But like Nintendo has been doing this. They invented this. Like
right. They just haven't done it in a while.
Yeah. They did it on yeah, well, I mean they've always done it on their handhelds. The exclusives were rare, but they did it on the Game Boy, they did it on the 3DS. The fact that they didn't do it on the Switch is honestly surprising. The one I wanted to point out, I know I don't want to leave it out, but MetaQuest is arguably a video game console.
Yeah,
and
it is standalone.
Yeah, and they're releasing a new headset like every 2 years or something like that.
Right, and like it's all like are there like Quest 3 exclusives?
I don't believe so yet. I think there will be, but it's all it's mainly performance upgrades over the Quest 2 so far. The Quest 3 is the premium headset to buy. The Quest 2 is the non-premium headset to buy, is the way they're billing it right now. But there is allegedly like a Quest 3 Lite coming later this year that has some of the upgrades of a Quest 3 and is cheaper. And they're figuring out their market for sure.
But I do think, like that's the space I want mid-gen refreshes to live in, pro consoles to live in. Like I don't think it's okay when Nintendo does things like, okay, you have to have a new 3DS to play this game. Like the point of a mid-gen console should be like it's just an enhanced version of the already existing hardware.
Now, to be fair, they've only done it a few times. Like Pokemon Crystal was a Game Boy Color exclusive, I think. And the port of Xenoblade Chronicles from the Wii to the 3DS was exclusive, I think. And
Nintendo's done a there were several Game Boy Color exclusives, like
there were only a few. There's
DX.
like nope.
Or not Link's Adventure. Link's Awakening DX was.
That was not exclusive. You could play that on an original Game Boy. You just could not play the Color Dungeon.
I see.
Yeah, so there was no reason to play it on an original Game Boy, but it would run.
You could just play the original.
Yeah. But it would run. Most Game Boy Color games would run on original hardware. There were only a few that, like Shantae, was exclusive to the Game Boy Color, I believe. And actually, Shantae, interestingly enough, the Game Boy Advance could run. There were things in Shantae you could only do on a Game Boy Advance. I'm pretty sure it could tell that it was running on a Game Boy Advance. Nintendo has a weird history with this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Nintendo's just weird in general.
Well, something interesting about Nintendo, this is just a side note, but the architecture of all of Nintendo's handhelds can trace back to the Game Boy. Like when you emulate a Game Boy game on the 3DS, it's not really emulation because it's the same type of processor.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. There is some emulation to fill some gaps, I think, but largely because the 3DS can run DS games, the DS could run Game Boy Advance games, and the Game Boy Advance could run Game Boy games.
They've just had complete backwards compatibility for these games.
Yeah, it was a hardware problem that they couldn't the only reason the DS couldn't play Game Boy Color and Game Boy games was because they couldn't fit like a switch to tell whether it was a Game Boy Advance game or a Game Boy and Game Boy Color game.
That's what a shame.
Yeah, like it's fascinating to me. Whereas, and then you have stuff like PlayStation where like I don't think you can't play a PS4 game on a PS5, right? Like,
oh yeah, you can.
You can? Which
yeah.
Okay, so it's PS3 you lose.
Yeah, PS3. That was the weird one that like they can't even emulate really too well.
Yeah.
You can emulate it perfectly on PC for some reason.
I learned recently that the Cell architecture was actually NVIDIA hardware, which is fascinating.
That is interesting.
Their GPU was NVIDIA.
Because consoles are almost always AMD.
They really disliked working with NVIDIA and
cool.
went to AMD.
I think the Cell was a very novel idea for a console, and it's kind of a shame that it didn't really take off.
Well, it presented. I don't know much about it either, but like what I know is that it presented developers with a much higher learning curve, and it took devs way longer to develop for it. And
but when you could
feasible.
squeeze like some of the things they squeezed out of the PS3.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, look at Uncharted 2 and 3. Like,
yeah,
those games still look better than most video games.
If you upscale, I bet if you could run DLSS over those games, they would look new. Like,
yeah,
literally, it was very neat what it was capable of.
Yeah,
it's just that they'd wanted to go back to the standard x86 architecture that everyone else uses. It was a risk they were willing to take because at that point they were
on top
of the world.
They were on top.
They had no.
Like, I guess tying it back into PS5 Pro, I really do like it when these companies inject their sort of secret sauce to differentiate them from like a regular PC, right? Like, I love the fact that PSSR is a thing, and I'm excited to see what it actually can do.
Is it a secret sauce though? Because it is just FSR but different, like, or DLSS but different. Like, it's the same way where I like.
I mean, it's the same way. I think, in a sense, it's the same. It's secret sauce in the same way their SSD was their secret sauce, right?
Yeah,
it's
which
not
is
like
to
some
say,
revolutionary.
Like, it barely
thing.
was. Like, it was just a
But,
good
like,
SSD.
But yeah, their SSD, like, it had a custom architecture for like memory loading and stuff. So it was just like really fast at the time, right? Obviously, other architectures caught up since.
I mean, it was.
That hasn't been
I think
on.
software was where they really had the lead, and they still sort of do. Like, you still can't, like, direct storage on PC is still extremely rare. It's still very difficult to load from the SSD directly into the graphics card, and that's where the PlayStation's advantage was.
Right.
But on a hardware level, it was like really nothing. Like, it was just an SSD.
But that's what I'm
good.
saying. Like, those were custom solutions that Sony came up with, whether they're hardware level or software level. And I just enjoy seeing those things because otherwise, we're just playing the same box that have different games on them. So,
I mean, that's how it's going to feel all the time anyway.
Yeah, it is. But
you unless you're a huge nerd and listen to this podcast, you're not going to know that.
Right. I mean, like, I listen to the Digital Foundry guys and stuff, so I just enjoy this kind of stuff. So it is cool to see.
I don't know, man. I still like a PS5 Pro is just a hard sell in any way.
I understand it's a hard sell for most people. I'm definitely going to get it like day one.
Oh, I know. I know you
are. The
are.
exact sort of mark for this sort of thing.
Maybe I'll buy your old. Or are you selling?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have no
maybe.
use for it, so maybe
I'll
just sell it to you.
No, never mind. There's nowhere to put it.
I did put all matte black over it, so it's not as hideous as you might.
Yeah, but I'd have to. Can you lay them on their side, or do they have to stand up?
Yeah, they can lay on their side.
Yeah, they have two options.
Okay, I have room for it then. I just don't like it. I do have my PS3 and my PS4 in my entertainment center not plugged in at all right now, just because I needed something to put there.
Yeah, aesthetics are very important.
And they were nailing it. The PS4 looks great. Just
PS4 is the best design, I think. Like that kind of like parallelogram kind of aesthetic.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the PS2 Slim
really
is
like
really good
the
too.
angles of the PS3 or PS4.
The PS4, the
PS3
that, like,
also
kind of weird
didn't,
diamond
the
shape.
Slim didn't look bad either for the PS3.
That's what I have. The original PS3 was way too big. The PS3
The original
Slim,
PS2 was way too big too.
I still don't like it being round though.
And I didn't really like the look of the PS4 Pro either. It was kind of like two PS4 stacked on top of itself.
Yeah, it was like a triple decker.
But the original PS4 was like a masterpiece of like just design. Like it looks phenomenal.
I agree. I love my PS2 Slim though. I love how small it is. I love like it just has no footprint. Like, well, that's not fair because it has to be able to open, so you can't set anything on top of it. But it's very small.
Yeah. Well, long gone are the days of small consoles, unless you're
Nintendo.
Nintendo Switch,
finally gone.
Well, that's kind of like a handheld.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I don't know. Like maybe the Switch 2 will have a dock the size of like a PS3 fat for all we know.
I feel like the Switch 2s are Bigfoot at this point.
It's just not real. It's going to
just
be.
There's
like
never
our
going to be a
Bigfoot.
Switch.
It's
2.
going to be the Wii 2. They're going to surprise the world.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna do something. I'm just afraid. Like you know, it's Nintendo. They're gonna do something out of left field.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna do something wild.
Any final thoughts on Pro consoles, PS5 Pro?
I just realized, other than like the Nintendo, I guess the PS4 is the only. I didn't have a PS4 or an Xbox at the time. I've never bought a Pro console except like a new 3DS.
I think the first one I bought was the Xbox 360 Elite.
Oh, I forgot that was a thing. Yeah.
So I don't remember how. like how better the Elite was than the 360?
I think
There
it just
wasn't
looked
any kind
better.
of-
It didn't have the hardware issues.
Yeah, I think it just
Okay,
fixed
so
it
it
by
just
the
like
time they came
ironed
up
out.
with
Like
that.
there weren't any like
And it had-
tangible performance gains or anything, right?
it had more
It didn't have any
storage.
performance.
Yeah,
I think
there was
they
better
just
storage.
modernized the Xbox 360. Was it the Slim where they had like the internal like disk drive instead of the tray that popped out?
I think so. I remember the Elite was a neat little console.
The
I really
360
liked that
was
console.
an oddity because it also didn't have a disk stabilizer. So if you moved the God forbid you moved the console,
Yeah.
because the console would just ruin anything inside of it catastrophically.
Yeah.
I have a future topic we could talk about. I got a future topic right there.
Hardware failures, yeah. No, but I think that's it. I don't have a lot to say about mid-gen upgrades. It's not ironically, as a PC gamer, you would think it's something I'm on board with, like, but I don't even upgrade my PC terribly often.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like antithetical to the point of consoles in the first place, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it
what's
is.
the point of a console if you have to upgrade it every few years?
Yeah.
But I don't know. We're here. This is the world we live in, so. All right, what are we playing?
All I've been playing is Helldivers. I really haven't been as a new season of Fortnite, but I haven't played enough of it to talk about it. I'm a little dry on Fortnite right now. I'm a little burnout. Helldivers is really doing it for me.
Yeah, like with the continual. I haven't actually played Helldivers. I need to
Oh
get
my
back
god, you
into
haven't
it.
gotten to play with the mechs yet, have you?
Yeah, I haven't.
No,
touched
I haven't.
Helldivers
I haven't
in a little
done
bit.
any of that. But just I've been hearing a lot about it, right? Like, and it's so cool. The sort of like live game master element of it, where they're just injecting things into the game.
Yeah, it still has me. I wonder how long they can keep it up, because right now it does kind of feel like they're doing something every couple weeks, like,
which is amazing. Like, that's crazy.
It's not sustainable. There's
and
got to be.
I mean, I like the meta plot they have. I'm a sucker for a good like plot line.
No, I love that they're
through like slow updates.
They're adding stuff to the game.
Did you guys hear about like the mysterious blue lasers killing
Yeah,
people?
sniping people.
Illuminate.
Yeah. Yep.
Like apparently the third faction is already like attacking
also,
people, but it's like a really rare
there was
thing.
one guy on Cyberstan, which is the old Cyborg homeworld.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still enamored with it. I've even played with randoms a little bit. I've been playing with Moses with some randoms every once in a while. It's just fun. Just a good game.
Just a good game.
And like kudos to Arrowhead, like they're really so far at least nailing the post-launch of this game.
And everyone I know is talking about it. I even got my girlfriend into it.
Oh my god, I have to shout out. They fixed the PC performance. I can run it at like
that's great
max settings and just play the dang game now. It hasn't crashed in ages. I'm very happy. I didn't think they were going to. I don't think they fixed it. I think I got a driver update. I think it was an AMD issue.
Okay.
Is what it is.
My drivers.
But yeah, I'm excited to see where this game goes. And like I said, like I do think I'll hop back into it. I've just been way too enamored with Balatro.
Oh yeah, Balatro's good. I've been playing that too.
I've heard of Balatro. I just haven't touched it yet.
So we talked about it last week, Connor, and I have been unhealthily playing this game to the point where like like sometimes I really hate myself because when I really like a game, I play it until I start disliking it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't have that sort of restraint in me. And I'm at a point now where I'm trying to do things in Balatro that are so frustrating it's making me mad at the game, which sucks because I realize this is a masterpiece of a game. It's just that the way I'm playing it now is not as fun.
You are sucking the marrow out of it.
Yeah, so like I'm stuck trying to beat Gold Stake right now. So I've beaten every stake with one deck, by the way, not every deck. I've unlocked every deck. But I've sort of just tunnel visioned in on the blue deck trying to beat every stake. And I did beat every stake except gold.
How many stakes are there? 5?
There's a lot. There's like closer to 10, I think.
Oh wow. Okay. There's gold
like
stake.
There's definitely more than 5 though.
Higher ante? What is gold stake?
Gold stake. So each stake applies the previous stakes as well, right?
Oh, wow.
And gold stake, I think the thing it adds on is like you have one less card in your hand or something like that.
Oh, that's not that bad.
But keep in mind, compounding with everything else, right? Like so one of the stakes increases like the like the ante prices are higher than like normal.
Yeah, and
right?
one
like,
of them
so
makes it so that you don't get any money from
the first blind.
Yeah.
And so all of that's in effect with Gold Stake, right? Keep that in mind. And there's another stake that each time you clear like a boss, the price of every booster pack in the shop goes up.
Oh my god.
So eventually it gets to the point where cards or like packs are pretty unaffordable.
I guess,
right?
but
like,
you I don't know. If you have the right econ going, you can get a lot
no,
of
you can.
money. Yeah.
But like, okay, so how have you progressed through the stakes at all, Connor?
I haven't bothered. No, I'm just trying to beat every deck is my goal. I'm trying to.
Okay, so as someone who has played extensively on the higher difficulties now, what I can say is if you don't get going quickly, right? Like within the first boss, right? Like if you don't have a couple jokers, if you don't have like a decent econ engine going, you're just finished.
You're done.
Like
yeah.
there's no way you can survive. So more often than not on Gold Stake, I've even gotten to the point where I play the first blind, the very first blind, and if I can't clear it in one hand, I just reset.
Because you need that like 1 penny. Like,
yeah, because you need that money to buy something in the shop. Because if you can't beat it in one hand, you can't buy anything in the shop.
Yeah.
And what I found is, especially on the higher difficulties, shops are the key. Like you need to get into the shop as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
So you have to play every blind. Like granted, there are strategies centered around skipping blinds, obviously, to get the tags. But at Gold Stake, especially, I found to even stand the remotest chance, you have to play every blind. So, like, a lot of my Gold Stake runs are just playing 1 or 2 hands.
Wait, you're playing every blind? Oh, you need the shop, even if you're not getting money.
You need the shops, even if you don't make any money. So,
interesting.
A lot of my runs have been like, okay, like, I've played a blind, I've played a second blind, I'm not liking the jokers, I'm just going to restart, because, like, I'm not going to waste my time.
Well, wait.
Because
I don't understand why you play... Oh, because you want the shop. So I was going to say, because you can't earn money on the first blind. And you're
on the first blind, you can earn interest. So you can earn a little bit of money. And that little bit of money you earn gets you enough to buy like even a kind of pricey joker.
Okay.
So even doing that much can set you up for long-term success on Gold Stake.
Okay.
And what I will say though, right, like I cleared every stake without too much difficulty, right? Like it wasn't like bash my head against the wall difficult until Orange Stake, which is the stake right before Gold Stake. That was freaking hard, man. And to an extent, I almost feel like I just got lucky past it.
Yeah.
But Gold Stake being even harder than Orange Stake, still haven't gotten past it. And it's super frustrating to me.
How many hours do you have? Do you know?
I think close to 35, maybe 40.
That's a lot, yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, I unlocked every deck, which is cool. But I haven't even played with some of them yet just because I've been so tunnel visioned on trying to clear Gold Stake.
On making sure you don't have any fun.
Exactly, right? Like I do this to myself. So but like it's an incredible game, right? Like
it is.
It's in the same rarefied air as like Slay the Spire to me. Like this is
played it.
One of the best card like I
love Slay the Spire.
This and Slay the Spire are hands down the two best deck building roguelikes. There's like no contest in my mind anymore. So it's quite the achievement that this one fellow, Local Thunk, was able to do with this game.
Inscription's pretty good.
Inscription's pretty good. I think Balatro is better. Like I think Balatro is pretty exceptional.
Yeah, it depends on what you're looking for. Inscription just does a lot that Balatro doesn't. That I like kind of wish Balatro did a little bit of.
Yeah, well, they're completely separate games.
Yeah,
right? Inscription's
very
more just like of a...
Balatro is more of a high score game than it is a roguelike,
right,
even.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the second this game comes out on mobile, man, like, society is going to stop functioning. Yeah, it's a fantastic game. I've unlocked almost every Joker. I think there's only like 20 or so that I don't have yet.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's 150 Jokers in the game, so that's most of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't realize there were that many in the game, honestly.
Yeah. But, yeah, just trying to clear that Gold Stake. I don't know. I actually haven't played for a couple days now for my own health. I've been reading Dune. After seeing Dune Part 2 in theaters, I kind of became obsessed with Dune.
Movie.
It was so good.
And Dune's such a good book.
Yeah, so I'm reading Dune, really enjoying that.
Nerds.
Help me clear my... I'm reading and not playing video games.
I haven't been doing either. I've been outside touching grass. It was really nice out this weekend.
I haven't even been playing video games. It's wild.
I went to a hockey game.
I went to one of those once.
It was fine. It was not Pittsburgh playing. It was Toronto and Montreal because we don't have a women's hockey team here.
Oh.
I'm not going to get into it too much.
But yeah, Balatro, pretty fantastic. If, frustrating at the higher difficulties. Maybe I just need to get good. Maybe that's all it is. But is anyone else playing anything?
I could talk briefly about how I've been playing Baldur's Gate again, but this time co-op.
Oh, how is that? You've been playing it with the girlfriend? Or?
Yeah, I've been playing it with the girlfriend. She's never played 5e before, so I'm stuck trying to explain mechanics and everything. And of course, the game is slightly modded.
Well, Baldur's Gate does a good job of explaining stuff.
Was what I did. So I'm playing as a lizard folk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'm sticking her. I expanded the party size, and I'm sticking her with all the martial classes. I can't find the word because I don't want to saddle her with a spellcaster yet, because that requires some brain that you don't have when you're starting 5e.
Right. Yeah. Spellcasters are not a good starter. I mean, it's fine in a video game, I would argue, but when you're playing with people, it can be really annoying. It can take way too long to get through a turn.
Yeah. Yeah. The spellcasters take some time, so I've been playing with the wizards and my monk and everything.
Yeah, man, Baldur's Gate multiplayer is one thing I always wanted to try. It's just too much of a commitment for...
If I was going to do that, I would rather just play D&D.
Right, it's okay...
If I'm putting that much work in.
Us 4 people are going to commit to 100 hours of playing this game. It's just it's too hard. But, in theory, though, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, if we weren't single, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. It's a nice experience. It's a good little bonding experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever finish the game, Mike, single player?
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't.
No, I haven't. It's
apparently
so hard.
At launch, apparently the ending was really disappointing, but they've improved it immensely since then.
It always pays to wait for most games.
Yeah, it also runs better now.
I'm excited to get through it. We really don't have a lot of free time with each other because we both work often the same shifts, and we share one day off, which recently I've been busy every single Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, this is a game, you're going to play it for months and months, right?
Yeah, we're going to come back to it. Yeah. I think our longest session will probably be after I come back from PAX. We've been playing an hour at a time here and there, taking it very slow, which I think is the intended way to take Baldur's Gate.
For sure.
Much like any tabletop game. If you spend all day grinding through Baldur's Gate, sure, it'll be fun, but that anticipation of coming back and playing the game a little more each time is what's keeping me wanting to play it.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Even though I've been having the worst luck with rolls, to the point where I'm getting bullied for it because I rolled an advantage and rolled a 1 and 2. I'm getting bullied is what's happening. I literally had to turn on karmic dice because I was sick of rolling ones. I failed the Gale roll 5 separate times. And it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for myself because I shouldn't feel the shame of rolling nothing but low rolls.
Sounds like a skill issue.
I think it is.
It is.
Just because I'm bad at the game. But yeah, I've been having fun. Haven't played much else because, again, I've been busy with work and prepping for PAX and everything.
Yeah, PAX is next week, right? So we'll probably have a recap.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Talk about that
I'm sure
week.
I'll talk about everything. I'm sure you'll see it on the Instagram and everything because I intend on putting a lot of stuff on Google Drive to put explicitly on the Instagram.
I'll be sure and get that over to my social media manager.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be ours? Sister? Yeah, technically. Yeah, and I know I'll have some sort of content to pull out of PAX too. I'm sure I'll put together a little vlog.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be fun. So I won't have a game to talk about next episode either. I'll just be talking about PAX for an hour and a half. Now that's all I've been doing this week.
All right. I think think that'll do it for us this week then. Thank you all for listening. You can follow us at @Podcast Game Talk on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Please like, rate, and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or any other podcast services you use. Click the link in the description of the podcast to join our Discord and talk to us there. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
Yep. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.